Risk management is looking at risk in the workplace and then putting sensible health and safety controls in place that manage those risks. In some jobs, you may think the risks are fairly obvious, while other work may appear to be completely risk-free. But even in a safe environment like an office, danger might be closer than you think. 45,000 people were injured from slips, trips or falls in the workplace in 2009 to 2010. This included 43 employees and 32 members of the public who died as a result of work-related slips or trips and falls. By law, a company has to formally assess all potential hazards within the workplace that might cause injury to workers or members of the public, and as far as is reasonably possible, remove the risk. Generally, any risk assessment contains 5 main elements, which are: Step 1. Identifying hazards. Step 2. Deciding who might be harmed and how. Step 3. Evaluating risks and how to reduce or remove them. Step 4. Recording the findings and implementing any identified safety measures. Step 5. Reviewing assessments regularly and updating when necessary. It should be remembered that a risk assessment is not about creating huge amounts of paperwork, but rather about identifying sensible measures that will control risks to employees and members of the public. Everyone in a workplace has a responsibility for the health and safety of themselves, their colleagues, and members of the public that might be harmed by their work. Employees also have a legal responsibility to cooperate with their employer's efforts to improve health and safety. For example, they must wear protective equipment if it is provided for a specific job. Companies must nominate a competent responsible person whose role is to ensure that risk assessments are performed and implemented. In a large company, the responsible person may also have competent assistants who will help perform risk assessments. We mentioned earlier the risk assessment's 5 steps. Let's quickly run through what these might entail. Identifying the obvious and the not-so-obvious hazards that may potentially cause injury in the workplace is the first step. A good starting point for this is to walk around the workplace looking for any hazards that may cause harm. Think about how accidents could happen and who might be harmed. Talk to employees, as they are often aware of hazards that are not obvious and may have good ideas on how to control any risks. Next, think about any identified risks and the chance, high or low, of somebody actually being harmed by the hazard and how serious the harm could be. Concentrate on the real risks, those that are the most likely to cause harm, and what safeguards need to be implemented to remove or minimize the risk. Don't forget to consider whether any measures already in place are sufficient. Once safety measures have been implemented, findings and actions taken should be recorded. If a company has fewer than 5 employees, then a written record is not required. However, it is good practice to keep a record, as it will help when performing future assessments or when carrying out accident investigations. Remember, safety isn't just a once-a-year assessment. Regular checks must be made to ensure that any existing controls are effective and that procedures are being followed. Today, workplaces rarely stay the same, and sooner or later, new equipment, substances or procedures may be introduced that could lead to new hazards. If any significant changes do take place or are planned, then it makes sense to ensure that a risk assessment is undertaken to ascertain what changes or additional controls may be required. When performing risk assessments, everyone who could be harmed must be considered. Some workers, for example new and young workers, expectant mothers, and people with disabilities, may have particular requirements or limitations that should be taken into account. Consideration must also be given to people who might not be in the workplace all the time, such as visitors, contractors and maintenance workers or members of the public who might be harmed by the company's work activities. For some risks, particular control measures are required by law. For example, working at height or working with chemicals, gas, electricity and asbestos. Let's look at 2 specialized risks that you might encounter. Risks from fire, explosion and similar events arising from dangerous substances used or present in the workplace, and the potential risks of working with portable or fixed electrical equipment. The first of these are covered by the Dangerous Substances and Explosive Atmospheres Regulations. This is a set of regulations that apply to both employers and the self-employed. They cover any substance or preparation which, because of its properties or the way it is used, could cause harm to people from fires and explosions. Dangerous substances include liquefied petroleum, gas, paints, solvents, and dusts, which when mixed with air could cause an explosive atmosphere. DESIR requires that risk assessments identify dangerous substances present or liable to be present in a workplace and how their use in work activities might result in a fire, explosion, or similar event that could harm employees or the public. They must then put in control measures to remove those risks or control them. These controls must also ensure any effects of an incident are reduced. Electrical hazards can be particularly dangerous. Each year, about 1,000 accidents at work involve electric shock or burns, and around 30 of these are fatal. Therefore, it is recommended that fixed electrical installations are inspected and tested periodically by a competent electrician. Portable electrical equipment should be tested routinely and according to the amount of wear and tear it is subjected to. Any damaged or faulty equipment must not be used and should be replaced or repaired. Any risk assessment should ensure that all electrical equipment and installations are checked regularly. It is recommended that all portable equipment has a label that indicates when the next test is due. Equipment should not be used after this date.